In this week's episode of Stardust Crusaders, things get fast and furious for Jotaro and his friends, as they have to defend themselves against a road-raging driver and his powerful stand, which takes the form of a creepy badass car. Where the hell is a blue shell when you need one? This week's episode was a perfect example of why I love this series so much. It has an incredibly intriguing storyline, there's a lot of mystery thrown in, it has a ton of badass action scenes, but what I loved most about this week's episode is how it managed to not take itself too seriously. It had a lot of fun this week. So much so that it's probably my favorite episode of the entire series, and a lot of that has to do with this brand new stand user who was introduced this week. He goes by the name of ZZ. I'm guessing this is just sort of a riff on ZZ Top. It sort of goes in line with the other characters in the series who are either named after rock musicians, bands, or songs, and it's pretty awesome because ZZ Top kicks a lot of ass. But his actual stand is probably one of the coolest I've seen so far. It is known as the Wheel of Fortune. Get it? Because wheel, fortune, whatever. The point is, the car itself is awesome. It actually opens up in the episode with this car that's constantly trying to run Jotaro and his friends off the road. In fact, there's this one scene where it actually tricks them into almost running head-on into a freaking semi-truck. And before Optimus Prime can even destroy Jotaro and his friends, freaking Star Platinum comes out and he's like, "Fuck your shit, Michael Bay! Boom, 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 boom!" And he knocks it out of the way. It is so friggin' awesome. But throughout the course of the episode, they sort of try to build up the mystery of who this stand user is, and eventually we get to see who it is, and it's this guy by the name of ZZ, like I said, but his actual appearance really isn't all that intimidating. He's a real skinny guy, but his arms are completely jacked. He sort of uses his stand as a way to sort of like hide himself, and he only reveals his arms outside the truck, which just happen to look freaking muscular and look like someone right out of Gears of War. The actual stand is what I love most about this episode. It takes on the form of a car which goes through multiple transformations, and the actual stand has a lot of powers. The car can actually have all of these spikes grow all over its body, under its tires. This way it can literally burrow and drive up mountains. In fact, it even has these claws right on the front, which it can use to go through the ground and burrow like a friggin' mole, which actually makes for a lot of really awesome and interesting scenes, but it's all made better by the fact that Joseph is still there to react in his classic, "Oh no!" He does it like twice this week, and it's really funny. The best part of the episode comes towards the end when they finally figure out how they're going to defeat this guy. It looks like he's getting ready to crawl up a mountain, and Jotaro is going to try and punch his underside as he's coming up the side of the mountain. However, this entire time, this car has been planning this because he's been shooting these streams of gasoline at Jotaro and his friends, and they just realize that they're covered in the stuff, and he's actually going to use an electrical spark to try and light them on fire. And it looks like he actually does catch Jotaro at first, and this is kind of a cop-out, because you can clearly see there's a human figure in there that's being burned alive, but it's actually just his coat. This is all just a ruse. But what's really awesome about this scene is that ZZ actually breaks the fourth wall. When he thinks he's actually burning Jotaro alive, he actually tells the viewer outright, "Haha, bitches! I just ended part 3 early!" This is easily one of the best parts of this entire episode, but it's made even better by the fact that Jotaro is actually playing along with him, and he's even asking him, "Who's gonna replace me?" And this is when he finally decides to finish him off with a flurry of his badass punches. And what I love most about it is when he's actually punching him while he's still in the car, there's a scene where his face like smashes through one of the doors and you can see like the imprint of his face. That's how powerful Star Platinum is. And then they just toss him out of the car and they don't even bother to finish the guy off. They literally tie him upside down to a rock where he's basically just going to starve to death in the middle of the desert. But that is the end of this week's episode, and I didn't even talk about some of the other big parts where he's stalking them throughout the course of the episode. They go to this one rest stop where they think the actual driver is there, and they end up like beating the crap out of all of these guys, and it's really funny because Jotaro and Joseph are the ones who are doing it, and Kakuin's like, "What the hell is wrong with you guys? All you ever do is just beat the crap out of people," and Joseph is really into it as well. It's really funny. If I only had one complaint about this week's episode, it's probably the fact that why in the hell did Jotaro and his friends decide to pick up that girl on the side of the road again? I mean, one, she's always getting in the way and they're always having to save her ass. And two, this sort of goes in line with one, if they'd have just left her there on the side of the road, she'd probably be way more safe than when she was hanging out with them, because they're always being attacked by Dio and his goons. That's just minor nitpicking from me, but honestly, what's the rundown on this week's episode of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure? Well, I loved it. This is one of those episodes where when it first started out, I really didn't enjoy it too much. I'm like, is this really all it's going to be? Just sort of this, blah, 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 blah. But as the episode went on, when they went to that rest stop and they were trying to figure out who he was, and then eventually it started to transform and burrow through the ground like a mole, that's when I was like, oh yeah, this is going to be a really fun episode. And the actual transformation of the car itself looks really awesome. I don't think it gets any more manlier than cars in JoJo, but that's what made this episode so entertaining. All of the moments were really funny, especially with Joseph Joestar continuing to do his classical oh no's, which are just, I don't know why those are funny to me. Maybe it's because it's the Japanese voice actor saying it, and frankly, it does just sound goofy to me. I can't help it. I just laugh at it. It's funny. And the fact that they don't actually, like, try to translate it in any other way. He's clearly just saying it in English. That just blows my mind, and it's funny. But it does make sense because he himself is an Englishman, so there you go. But the thing that really made this episode for me, though, at the end of the day, is, of course, that car. The user himself, really not all that impressive. He's just there to gloat and be an asshole, basically. But the actual car itself, the Wheel of Fortune, I just thought that was boss as hell. It really gets me excited to see what the other stands are going to be in the rest of the series. I also love the fact that Jotaro was showcased a little bit more this week, because out of all of the characters, he definitely, I think, is showcased the least, and he is the main character. However, the series is supposed to run throughout the course of the year. It's supposed to be like a full 50 episodes, so I'm sure there's going to be plenty of time to expand on Jotaro. In fact, we're still pretty early in the series. I cannot wait to see what the future is, because this series is a lot of fun. I really look forward to watching this every week. It's it's basically replaced my love for Kill La Kill. That was one of those shows that's like every week I'm like, oh man, I cannot wait to see this every week. Now it's all about JoJo, and I'm just digging it full on. Animation was good this week. Voice acting was hilarious. It ended with a little bit of teasing. You get to see that Witch and Yaba and her Justice card are getting ready to go out and fight. Cannot wait to see what her abilities are, because she definitely seems like she's one of the higher-ups in Dio's group. However, like I said, this is still pretty early on in the series. There's probably like a whole nother group of badass Ginyu Force type-like guys, which we haven't even seen yet. So, I loved this episode. It wasn't perfect. There were some parts in the beginning that were a little slow, but for the most part, I thought this was just really exciting. It had a lot of nice, like, little mystery elements to it. Every week, getting to see the stands and see, like, how their, like, abilities work is always really interesting, and they always tend to catch me by surprise, and that's exactly what this one did. And it was also another homage to horror movies. I just couldn't help but think of the 1983 Stephen King movie, Christine, which is about a car that comes to life and tries to kill people. It just, the author clearly is a fan of horror films. That's all I'm going to say. But I'm going to give this week's episode a 9 out of 10. I think you guys should check it out if you're following the series. And if you haven't watched it yet, watch it now. Now is your time to catch up and watch this series. Because you know what, guys? It's the shit. It might be one of the best action series I've ever seen. No exaggeration. There it is, guys. Check it out. If you guys saw this week's episode of Stardust Crusaders, it's time to tell me what you thought about it with your comments below. Did you guys have any favorite scenes from this week's episode? What did you think of the battle between Jotaro and the Wheel of Fortune? And if you could have a stand power, what would it be? Remember, guys, before you leave, hit that like button so you can give this video a thumbs up. I'm sure you've heard this like a million times. You can also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. But the best way to help us out is to watch our videos. In fact, stay tuned at the end of the video. There will be 2 links to 2 movie reviews that me and Christian have worked on this week. There's the very first Naruto Shippuden movie review, and I actually just reviewed the very first Bleach movie. We worked really hard on those, so please check those out. Thumbs them up and all that other jazz. You can also check us out on Facebook and on Twitter. I'll put those in some links in the description box below. Make it real easy for you guys. That concludes my review today. Super Kami Guru 9000. Out.